Welcome to The Explainer. I was looking into this topic recently, and it turns out we are facing a profound structural breakdown over the digital infrastructure we rely on every single day. We're diving into a fascinating and honestly incredibly urgent issue, the breakdown of Coasean bargaining. Basically, we're looking at the complete failure of traditional legal and economic frameworks when massive AI developers scrape the digital commons for their training data. It's this massive invisible battle, and it affects literally everyone who creates anything online.
I want to hook you immediately with a really profound question. Think about this for a second. Who actually owns the digital commons? Every single time you prompt an AI, every time it generates a stunning image, writes a block of code, or drafts an email for you, it isn't just pulling that intelligence out of thin air. Not at all. It fundamentally relies on a massive, ever-growing reservoir of human-created content. You're interacting with the accumulated sweat of the brow from millions of people.
There's this fantastic research paper called Market Design for AI, and it establishes the stakes perfectly. It states, and I quote, "AI models' ability to generate useful content depends on a rich reservoir of human-created content, largely without human creators' consent, compensation, or credit." Now, indiscriminately scraping the web has definitely enabled this era of rapid, explosive AI progress, but it is fundamentally undermining the very human incentives required to keep creating high-quality content in the first place. We are essentially strip mining the internet.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the AI data crisis. Second, the Coase theorem illusion. Third, the rise of unbounded models. Fourth, monopsony and correlation externality. Fifth, the originality penalty. And finally, number 6, how we move beyond the copyright binary.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the AI data crisis, a true crisis of valuation.
Right now, generative AI models are just gobbling up vast amounts of web-scraped human data. And the human creators providing that foundational data, they receive absolutely zero compensation or credit. None. This creates a massive incentive misalignment. Think about it. Why spend hours coding an elegant solution if an AI is just going to scrape it and serve it up for free to someone asking a prompt in their pajamas? The research actually points out that the human creation of high-quality original content is dropping. A perfect quantifiable example of this is Stack Overflow. After the rise of large language models like ChatGPT, their web traffic took a massive hit. Users were simply consuming AI answers instead of contributing their own expertise to actually produce them. This free-for-all scraping model is creating a real crisis where humans are literally losing the drive to produce.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Coase theorem illusion, the hidden problem of transaction costs.
Okay, so what is this Coase theorem anyway? In traditional economics, it's a standard from the 20th century. It theorizes that if property rights are clearly assigned, private parties will just naturally bargain with each other to reach a socially efficient outcome. But, and this is a massive but, here's the big caveat. This only works provided there are zero transaction costs. It paints this incredibly neat, tidy little world where individuals can easily sit down at a table, evaluate the worth of an asset, and negotiate the rights to their work without any friction whatsoever.
The theory assumes you, me, and massive AI firms can easily just sit down and negotiate a fair price. But reality? Yeah, reality proves otherwise. When we try to force our messy, chaotic real world into this neat Coasean box, it completely shatters. In the modern generative AI landscape, the transaction costs are not zero. Not even close. They are absolutely astronomical. Moving on to Section 3, the rise of unbounded models. Let's talk about the sheer scale of modern AI.
Think about this stark contrast here. On one side, we have bounded models. Picture a neatly fenced garden. You have a few easily identifiable creators, crystal clear intellectual property rights, and low transaction costs for negotiation. If an AI trains on, say, 5 textbooks, it can easily negotiate with those 5 specific authors. The Coase theorem works great here. But modern AI? It relies on unbounded models. We are talking about billions of indiscriminately scraped digital data points. The sources and rights holders are completely indistinguishable. Trying to negotiate licenses for every single image, forum post, or text snippet scraped by a web crawler creates impossible, literally infinite transaction costs. You just cannot negotiate with the entire internet.
Section 4, monopsony and correlation. These are the broken gears of the system.
The first broken gear is this huge market power imbalance. AI developers hold highly concentrated monopsony power. If you aren't familiar with the term, it's essentially a monopoly, but for buyers instead of sellers. They are a handful of massive, highly capitalized entities.
And on the exact opposite side, you have fragmented human creators, millions of completely uncoordinated individuals. Because the AI firms have this monopsony power as buyers, they can easily dictate the pricing terms, paying human creators far, far below what is actually required to induce socially optimal creative efforts.
And this builds perfectly into the second broken gear, the correlation externality. Step 1. Human creative works naturally share linguistic and stylistic patterns, right? We write in similar ways, we code using similar frameworks. Because of this, step 2 is that one creator's data contains highly correlated information about another's. And step 3 is the real kicker. AI firms aggregate this data, bypassing individual negotiations entirely. If you sell your content to an AI developer, you're effectively selling a piece of everyone else's content that's correlated with yours. It's like buying one person's secret family recipe and using it to reverse engineer the entire neighborhood's cookbook. The AI firm gets the generalized intelligence it needs without ever having to pay the rest of the individual creators.
And here is where it gets crazy. Section 5, the originality penalty, how we're punishing true innovation. So the crucial point here is that the current system actually penalizes the most original human minds. This is known as the originality penalty. Highly innovative creators are severely undercompensated because their unique data cannot be easily correlated or aggregated. If your work is highly unique, it isn't easily substituted by scraping millions of other generic posts. Yet, because the AI firms rely on bulk correlation and monopsony pricing, those highly original creators aren't fairly compensated for their vital, unique contributions. The system literally starves the AI of the novel, groundbreaking data it desperately needs to grow.
The consequences of this originality penalty are incredibly dire for everyone. First, original creators just throw their hands up and exit the market. They stop publishing because the incentives are totally gone. Because of this, AI models are forced to train on increasingly homogenized and often AI-generated data. The research calls this the curse of precision. As models get better, they induce humans to rely more on AI to create content, which homogenizes the data even further. Ultimately, if AI just keeps eating its own recycled synthetic output, it's like a snake eating its own tail. Eventually, the whole mathematical tower simply falls over in a phenomenon known as model collapse. So, how do we fix this? Section 6, Beyond the Copyright Binary. Let's design a new market.
Right now, we are stuck in a completely broken binary. On one end, we have free-for-all fair use. As we've seen, this completely destroys human incentives and creates a massive free rider problem. On the other extreme, we have strict IP rights, and surprisingly this also fails, primarily due to the monopsony power and correlation externalities we just discussed. Both extreme ends of our traditional legal frameworks are completely inadequate for the age of artificial intelligence.
The proposed market design steps outside that binary entirely. The solution? Establish a powerful data intermediary. Much like a collective management organization. Think of ASCAP or BMI in the music industry, but for your digital data. This intermediary would manage human creators as a unified portfolio. By negotiating collectively, this protective shell overcomes the AI firm's monopsony power. And crucially, it internalizes the negative externalities of data correlation on behalf of the content creators. It acts as a shield against the wood chipper effect of algorithmic extraction.
Okay, but how does this intermediary fairly pay the creators? It uses something called the Shapley value. Think of it like slicing up a pie based not just on who showed up, but who brought the most unique, irreplaceable ingredients. It's a cooperative game theory weighting system used to distribute royalties based on a creator's actual marginal contribution to the AI's social surplus. This specific mathematical framework is absolute genius because it perfectly reverses the originality penalty. It directly subsidizes true human innovation, ensuring that highly original, non-correlated datasets are compensated in proportion to their unique utility. In short, it pays the real innovators.
And this brilliantly illustrates our main point today. As the research states, the Coasean bargaining model suffers a structural breakdown. Copyright policy must transition away from both the uncompensated fair use model and the highly fragmented individual licensing model. This hammers home the absolute necessity of abandoning old, rigid frameworks if we want to save the digital economy and protect human ingenuity.
We've covered a massive journey today, looking at how the very architecture of our digital future is being actively rewritten. I want to end this explainer with a final, provocative thought for you to chew on. Are we ready to design a new market? If the invisible engines powering our digital world are currently destroying the incentives for human creativity, what role will you play in demanding an architecture that actually rewards the minds that build our world? Keep asking the hard questions, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.